The Galactic Empire had a huge tactical advantage over the Rebel Alliance, so how did they lose the war? Sure, you can say nice sounding things like, freedom is a pure idea. But with the Rebels not forming much of an alliance at first, the vast amount of resources at the Empire's disposal, and even dark magic on their side, the Galactic Empire was in the best possible position you could ask for if you ran a tyrannical government. In practice, however, they could not capitalize on these material advantages. Mainly incompetence, and just a hint of sheer bad luck, turned what should have been a swift victory for the Empire into a series of crushing and humiliating defeats. By the time the Empire started to finally gain some competence, it was too late, and an easily stepped on blaze raged into an inferno that burned down the regime. Let's take a look at how the Galactic Empire implemented, and more importantly failed to implement, the 36 stratagems of Wang Jingze in Andor, tossing out a brick and receiving a brick to the head back. A failure of toss out a brick to lure a jade gem. The Empire's operations on Ferrix in general were abysmal, but if one had to sum up their biggest error, it would obviously be excessive force. The principle of toss out a brick to lure a gem is the stratagem of baiting someone by making them believe they gained something to obtain something valuable from them in return. This is a simple yet effective strategy for the Empire to implement. It was indeed what the Empire did to attempt to catch Cassian, right when the town was already on the edge of rebellion because of their actions. Had Cyril Karn, resident loser and simp of the Star Wars universe,
Just being in your presence, I've realized that life was worth living, and for me the future was
put even half as much thought into strategy as he did virtue signaling, he could have easily used this exact turncoat from the start, and we wouldn't have had a show. Instead, he put himself and his team at risk to going guns blazing in an absolutely unnecessary show of force, just because he believed justice was on his side. He should have taken a cue from Ned Stark's story and realized that one's perceived moral virtue, without cunning to go along with, will not save you. Failure to capture because one would not let loose. The Narkina 5 prison break was primarily a result of the Empire at first adhering to the stratagem of letting loose to capture, only to evidently betray it to their detriment. At first, the prison is run with brutal efficiency. Incentives are created within the context of the prison to work hard so that cruel punishment is avoided, and meager reward is gained. This works because humans are motivated more by loss aversion than reward, so the reward didn't have to be great, so as long as there was one, even if that reward is something they'd have in abundance outside the prison. In fact, this made the ultimate incentive, getting out of prison eventually if you didn't cause trouble, all the more appealing. The problem was that this incentive only works so long as you let the prisoners believe they still have a chance for freedom, for their will to fight is only hampered by their desire to escape. Take that away and this cruel system works against itself, as now the loss aversion pushes them to only one conclusion, that being that fighting is the one way to avoid a life of tasteless food and electric shocks, as it's simply not possible for everyone to always be at the top of the scoreboard, where such punishment is avoidable. Cornered prey will mount a final desperate attack, as they should when they realize that there's only one way out. Shut the door to catch the thief. Anto Krieger's group was a rebel separatist cell, which was wiped out when the ISB learned of their plan to raid an Imperial power station. What's interesting about this defeat is that not only was it avoidable from the perspective Krieger could have been warned, i.e. not sacrificed to keep the mole inside the ISB secret, but this also would have been avoided if not for the fact that this one time, the Empire's stratagem was sound in the whole show. The stratagem of shut the door to catch the thief, wherein one does not rush into action but rather prudently plans for success to deliver the final blow after first cutting off the enemy's escape routes and any external aid. The plan is executed with such surgeon-like precision that we see why Partagaz is a major. Unfortunately for the Empire, they not only fall prey to the rebel stratagems with their own success, but they are also unable to continue this streak when the otherwise competent Dedra Miro gets completely bodied in the streets of Ferrix. For us, however, this nicely leads us to the most iconic stratagem of the 36, one of which reminds us of why Sun Tzu himself said that the supreme victory is won without fighting. Freedom really is a pure idea, the Tao of rebellion.
Apparently the only thing keeping us from liberty is a few more ideas.
A few more ideas. I mean, it's so confusing, isn't it? So much going wrong, so much to say, and all of it happening so quickly. The pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it, and that is the real trick of the Imperial thought machine. It's easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident. But they have a fight on their hands, don't they? Our elemental rights are such a simple thing to hold, they will have to shake the galaxy awfully hard to loosen our grip.
Dedra Miro could have saved the Empire had she been in charge. Time and again she was able to see through the organized rebellion's plans and went through the effort to put a stop to them. She was, as Major Partagaz would put it, completely capable of diagnosing the diseased, or rather see through the rebel stratagems, so that they may be treated. So we again return to the question we started this investigation with. Why did she and the rest of the Empire fail? Despite the fact that they didn't necessarily lack the intelligence to turn things around, if not prevent a rebellion outright. We can say that they lacked the initiative, but that doesn't answer the why. Simply put, it comes down to the fact that for the Empire, the greatest of the 36 stratagems, if all else fails, retreat, was not available to them, or any territorial state for that matter. And that is the material reason freedom is a pure idea. Surrender is a complete defeat. Compromise is half defeat. But escape is not defeat. As long as one is not defeated, there is still a chance. A territorial state, which cannot retreat by definition, only has the option of surrender, compromise, or destruction of an imposing force. But a rebelling force can always run away to return and win another day, a la Mao Zedong and the CPC fighting the nationalists. And opposition to a territorial state among humanity will always arouse at some point, simply because not everyone will always agree on the best course of action when it comes to humans. Ants and bees got it easy. In essence, this is why government always arises out from the consent of the governed over time. A territorial state reaches a compromised state with a strategically sound opposition. In the Tao Te Ching, it is written, "The highest type of ruler is one whose existence the people are barely aware." In practice, this is because rebellion, through natural selection, lends itself to strategic thinking, whereas governance lends itself to overextension or neglect, both of which attract the attention and ire of the masses. If you consider yourself the kingly type, always try to remain ever vigilant, meeting the needs of the people before they even come up ideally. And as for the rest of us, we must stay awake and keep in mind our civic duty to fight the Empire.